How do the Seahawks fix their offensive line in 2025? This is a big question that a lot of fans are asking themselves, and I think I've got a plan that can help them really improve this year. First things first, go and get your center early in free agency. Clint Kubiak spelled it out in an interview with Softy and Dick on KJR. He said that for the zone blocking system to work, you need to have an elite center. With the greatest respect to Oluwatimi, he is not an elite center. I don't think the Seahawks believe he can be an elite center. That is why they signed Connor Williams right before last season began, even though he retired a few weeks later. So they've got to go out and they've got to go and get a center who can basically run the protection calls and be the focal point at the heart of this offensive line. Drew Dalman from the Atlanta Falcons is the man to go and target. He's 26 years old. He was one of PFF's top 5 highest graded centers this previous season, alongside the likes of Creed Humphrey and Frank Ragnow, Tyler Linderbaum. He was right up there. So definitely in terms of performance, he is one of the best in the league. In the last 2 years, he has graded an 82.3 and a 90.9 specifically for zone blocking. So he is the ideal player for this system. He's the ideal player to invest in. They've got to go and get him. Will the Seahawks be prepared to make a big splash early in free agency on someone like Drew Dalman? The answer is yes. A year ago, they spent big money to keep Leonard Williams right at the start of free agency. The year before, on the first day of the market opening, they went out and landed Draymond Jones. They have shown in the last couple of years that they are willing to spend early in free agency. And I will not be surprised at all if they repeat that this year to go and get Drew Dalman. How much would he cost? I think he would cost in the range of about $15 million a year. That is in between Frank Ragnow's $13.5 million a year and Creed Humphrey's $18 million a year. He leads the top of the market for centers. I think somewhere in between those marks is about what Drew Dalman can expect. And I think it'd be worth it to invest in the offensive line. If you can't get to him for whatever reason, he stays in Atlanta, he goes somewhere else, whatever it is, then I think you've got to go and pivot to Ryan Kelly. He had a strong zone blocking grade in 2023, 75.4. It wasn't as good in 2024, and there has to be some durability concerns, and there has to be some longevity concerns. He's going to be 32 years old in May. He's coming towards the end of his career. But what he would bring if you sign him, leadership, experience, and toughness. And I think you've just got to take a chance on him if you can't go and get Drew Dalman. So they're the two players that I think you target early in free agency. Go and get Dalman. If you can't, you pivot to Ryan Kelly. That's your first move, and you invest in the offensive line. Second move, it's not even going to be an addition. You fix Christian Haynes. His zone blocking grade was 89.2 at UConn when he was coming into the NFL draft and was taken by the Seahawks in round 3. He had a miserable rookie experience where Lamea was getting the reps at the end of the season and taking his rookie lumps instead of Christian Haynes. But he is a very good zone blocking guard. He is perfect for this system. So it's going to be up to Kubiak and John Benson, the new offensive line coach, to get him right, to put him in a position to succeed, to make sure that that third round pick wasn't a waste. If you can get him starting, and even starting at just a decent level at right guard in year 2 of his pro career, then that will be a huge addition. It will be almost like signing somebody new. So I think you've got to go and fix Christian Haynes to be your starting right guard, because he can be a very good zone blocking guard in the NFL. And then the left guard position, a lot of people want the Seahawks to go and throw money at Trey Smith. I think he's just going to be too expensive. And I don't think, I thought this, I've gone back on it. I thought a few weeks ago they should just push the boat out to get him. Watching that Super Bowl, watching him getting pushed around a little bit, I don't think it is worth paying a guard $20, $25 million. I think you've got to go about this in a different way. I think you have now got to go and see if you can pull a rabbit out of the hat a little bit. For example, look what the Eagles did with Mekhi Becton. They took someone with obvious talent. He was broken at his previous team. They fixed him. I think you've got to do a bit of that. Tevin Jenkins, for example, at Chicago, was quite highly rated coming into the league. It hasn't worked out for him in Chicago. His zone blocking grade was a 70.5 in 2024, but it was an 85.7 according to PFF in 2023. There's something there. There is something to work with. Bring him in, give him an opportunity. Could Jedrick Wills from Cleveland be this year's answer to Beckham if you kick him inside to guard? Right from when he was at Alabama, I always thought he was better suited moving into guard. The Browns have played him at tackle. It hasn't worked. He's going to be a free agent. It all feels very familiar to Mekhi Becton. Bring him in. Reclamation project. He could be an option for you. I'd go and sign a draft hedge with an eye of you are going to draft at least one guard when the draft comes around. Lucas Patrick from the Saints had a very, very decent season for New Orleans last year in this run blocking scheme, playing guard. I would go and sign him. No one is expecting Lucas Patrick to be Steve Hutchinson, but he can tie down a guard position for you. You can hedge against the draft. He can provide some depth and some backup qualities there. I would go and bring Lucas Patrick to the Seahawks, and he's not going to break the bank. If you want the name of a dark horse candidate to sign at guard, Ben Barch isn't a household name, but he could be someone they look at. He was a fourth-round pick previously for the Jaguars. They cut him. The Niners picked him up. When Aaron Banks suffered an injury late last season, Barch replaced him at left guard, and he had a really good game against the Buffalo Bills and a tough outing for the Niners. In the limited time he's had on the field, he's recorded a very good zone blocking grade of 79.7 in 2023 and 79.0 last season. There's a feeling the Niners want to re-sign him to replace Banks. They're both free agents, and I just think the Seahawks maybe should get in there and beat them to the punch. Barch knows the system that Clint Kubiak wants to use. He's shown a little bit of promise when he started, unlike a lot of those other San Francisco offensive linemen who have struggled. Stealing him away could provide the Seahawks with a cost-effective starting guard. He's at a good age, he's 26 years old, and it could spoil the plan of San Francisco. So no one is going to be excited what I've suggested there. Everyone's going to be shouting at the screen, Rob, you're talking about fixing the offensive line, not just filling holes. Well, I think the draft is going to come into this, but I have got something that's a little bit more exciting for you. I want to pitch something that's going to be a little bit out there, and you can tell me in the comment section what you think of this. If the Chiefs want to transfer cap space from Joe Thuney to Trey Smith to keep the younger offensive lineman, they might be willing to trade Joe Thuney. They would save $16 million by moving him, and he would cost the inheriting team $15.5 million as a cap hit, which is very, very manageable. Now, he turns 33 in November, so this is only a short-term option. But if you were able to add someone like Joe Thuney to play left guard alongside a Drew Dolman or a Ryan Kelly at center, if you can get Christian Haynes playing at a higher level, then that to me is an offensive line that is going to be miles better than it has been for a few years. So how do you get this done? Because you're going to have to make an offer that is attractive to the Chiefs to tempt them to do this. I'd think outside the box, because people could say, well, give him a third-round pick. For a player who might not play for much more than a couple of years, I think that's a little rich for me. I think you have to be creative. You have to give the Chiefs a reason to want to deal with you compared to other teams, because I guess someone like the Patriots might want to bring Joe Thuney back there with Mike Vrabel in charge because they've got an offensive line problem as well. And maybe he would like to go and finish his career back there. I don't know. But you've got to get yourself to the front of the queue. Here's my suggestion. Personally, I would not pay Tariq Woolen. I think his play is erratic. He shows absolute quality at times in certain games. Without a doubt, his physical makeup is exceptional, and he has at least the talent and the potential to be one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I don't think he's got the maturity or the consistency to make it happen. I think he's always going to be a streaky player. But because of the physical tools, he's always going to be tantalizing. I would not pay Tariq Woolen, and his contract is up in 1 year's time. If I'm not going to pay him, really, the only point of keeping him is to have him on the roster in 2025, because I'm going to let him test the market in a year. Could you tempt the Chiefs by saying, listen, we'll give you Tariq Woolen. You can take him on and see if you can develop him. The Chiefs have taken on little projects like this before, and you give us Joe Thuney. Both players on an expiring contract, both players at opposite ends of their careers, but maybe fitting each other better. The cheaper Woolen, cornerback for the Chiefs, for the Seahawks, being able to get an offensive lineman who can provide impact and start immediately. I'm not suggesting that this would definitely happen, that the Chiefs would accept this or that the Seahawks would want to do this. I'm just saying and trying to be creative about it. If the Chiefs are willing to do this, I would do it. And bring Joe Thuney in, even if it's just for 1 year. Maybe you can get him signed up for another year after that, or even 2 years. But I think that's the kind of thing that would dramatically improve this offensive line. If you can't do a deal like that, you've got the guys that I mentioned earlier as a fallback. I know it's not splashy, but they're players who could come in as you prepare to draft somebody. But this is the kind of move for Joe Thuney that intrigues me, that I just want to pitch to you and get your thoughts on it. So let me know what you think. And then if you lose Tariq Woolen, you can go into free agency and there's going to be some interesting options there. Asante Samuel Jr., Chavarius Ward, Myron Murphy, Carlton Davis, Nate Hobbs. You've got players in the draft. You have got some good cornerbacks in this draft. I'm just saying, but you might even consider doing that with your first pick if you bring Joe Thuney in, fix your offensive line. Could a Jahdae Barron make sense? Could Azariah Thomas make sense for the Seahawks? In round 2, a Maxwell Hairston, Trey Amos, Xavier Scott, Jacob Parrish. There are players in there. Maybe later on you take a chance on a Denzel Burke, Jabbar Muhammad. There are players in this class who you could come in and work with. And I do trust Mike McDonald to make things happen at cornerback because he did it in Baltimore. Yes, he had one very good cornerback in Marlon Humphreys. Everything else was just, he improved them and he developed them. And he was able to get a level of performance out of whoever was playing across from him. I think he can do that again. So I'm not too concerned about that position, frankly. And like I said, there's some options in free agency that are interesting as well. So if you've been able to do those moves with or without Joe Thuney, I think it sets you up to go best player available with your top draft pick. I know a lot of people want the Seahawks to take an offensive lineman here or to go with a defensive lineman. And there are players who would be best player available at 18 on the offensive line. Tyler Booker, for me, is an exceptional player. I think he can fit any scheme. He's a 5-star recruit. He is powerful. He's a tremendous run blocker. He can get out on the move. He can pull. He can get to the second level. He's going to be a captain and a leader on your team almost immediately. He's going to set the tone. I think he's a perfect draft pick for the Seahawks. I am not convinced that he's going to last to number 18. Armand Membu is a terrific zone blocking right tackle for Missouri who projects to move inside. He would be an excellent choice for the Seahawks. Kelvin Banks Jr. also has good zone blocking grades. If he lasts to 18, he would be an option too. But if all 3 of those players have gone, it doesn't matter because you have got options for later on in the draft as well. And these are the players that, in a certain way, intrigue me more than some of the players at the top end of round 1. For a long time now, on Seahawks Draft Blog, we have been trying to find certain offensive linemen who can work for the Seahawks, and we have had a few hits. We have seen offensive linemen who have been blog favorites, who have gone on to become exceptional starters in the NFL, or at least very good starters in the NFL. And the Seahawks have not done a good enough job identifying those players and bringing them in and developing them. So I have found some players that I think perfectly fit the zone blocking scheme, who could come in day 2, day 3 picks, who could be very, very good for the Seahawks. Connor Colby, who apparently can run like a 4.47 short shuttle, jump a 30-inch vertical, exceptional zone blocking guard. 81.3 grade for zone blocking. Watched some more of his tape last night to get a feel for him, to come and talk about him in this video and in an article for SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Excellent player. The Iowa offensive line had 8 games where they ran for more than 200 yards in 2024. That's the most by any Iowa team since 2015. Other players who can do it. Gray Zabel, 84.8 zone blocking grade. Could be a guard. I think he's better at guard than center. Could be an option for them. Jack Nelson, massively underrated left tackle from Wisconsin, but projects either as a swing tackle or someone who starts at guard. I just think he's an excellent player. I think at the very least, you're going to get a David Edwards level of performance from him. He's had a decent career. And the Seahawks, again, have not had enough players who just had decent careers on the offensive line. It's been just a bunch of busts. And I think Jack Nelson with his 86.4 zone blocking grade would be a terrific option and could provide real value in this draft. There are some other names as well. The Georgia pair, Dylan Fairchild, Tate Ratledge, both very, very good players. Wyatt Millam had a very disappointing Senior Bowl, in my opinion. His zone blocking grade is a 90.3. Clay Webb, smaller schools guy, had a good Senior Bowl, 84.9 zone blocking grade. I'd have no problem taking these guys a little bit later on in the draft and giving them an opportunity. These are the kinds of players that I think you can build a really good offensive line around. Again, it's about 5 players coming together who can learn the scheme, excel in the scheme, and act as one. It is not just about having first round pick, first round pick, first round pick, first round pick. That can be nice sometimes, but it's not very realistic. It's about bringing players together who can function together. And I think the players that I've just listed there, get them in round sort of 2, 3, 4, 5. I think you can build a really good offensive line with these guys. But then there's other things you need to do as well. For example, Clint Kubiak was talking about the need for a fullback. Go and get one. Go and get Patrick Ricard, free agent from Baltimore, if you want to be that kind of a team. And they also need a blocking tight end. If you were going to excel in the red zone, if you're going to get those short yardage situations, then you need somebody who can block exceptionally well as a tight end. Let Noah Fant and AJ Barner do a lot of the pass catching. Go and get Jackson Hawes from Georgia Tech. He is a destructive blocker as a tight end. The best blocking tight end in this draft for me. So there's a lot of information there, a lot of names. Just sort of recap a little bit. If you go and get Drew Dolman and Ryan Kelly to start at center, get one of them very early in free agency, it sets the tone for the rest of the offseason. Then you look at your options at guard. Maybe you go for a draft hedge, but you shoot your shot with someone like Joe Thuney and see if you can make that happen. Go and get a good fullback like Patrick Ricard. Go and get a blocking tight end late in the draft like Jackson Hawes. And then see what you can do in the draft. Can you get a Tyler Booker? Can you get an Armand Membo? If not, look at those next tier of guys. Your Connor Colby, your Gray Zabel, your Jack Nelson, your Wyatt Millums. People like that, the Georgia duo. This team has got an opportunity with the players available in free agency and the draft to be the kind of physical bully that they've kept telling us they want to be for so many years and haven't been able to do it. They have an opportunity to do it this year. And yes, they have an opportunity to do all of this and still improve the defense a little bit. It's a good free agent group in terms of defenders. And yes, they can go and draft a quarterback. And there are quarterbacks in this draft that I think they should consider on day 2 who have had success in college football, who have got the physical tools that we know John Schneider likes, who've got that mobility, have got high football character, who are good on third downs and have excelled in big games and achieved things with their teams in college football. The Will Howards, the Riley Leonards, the Quinn Ewers. Yes, even your Jackson Darts, your Tyler Shucks. You know, there are players who have done stuff in college football who are interesting and are worthy of being drafted to develop. So you can become a physical football team. You can improve your defense. You can fix your offensive line, and you can invest in a quarterback in this offseason. I promise you it's all possible. So let's see if the Seahawks can do it. Big offseason is about to start. A lot of big moves to come before the combine and then free agency and then the draft with Geno Smith's contract, whether players are going to get cut, whether they're going to have their contracts adjusted. But everything is there for the Seahawks to have a brilliant offseason. They can do it. Let's see if they can pull it off.